you been hiding? We got trust. What are you deciding? Hearts align, the one I confide in. Life is hard, I know we'll survive it. We're intertwined, no need for you to fight it. This space and time, forever we'll cherish. God designed a wonderful pairing, a light that's bright, one that's so glaring. Two of us, our hearts is so caring. Can you tell me what love's prayer is? We cannot miss what we wish. We cannot miss what we wish. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 love. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 love. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 love. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, 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 love. Hello, 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 hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bayou Sugar Garden. I am Bayou Sugar, and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome in. If not, welcome back. Um, Let me put these on so I can see. Let me remind you guys to hit that like button. Don't forget to share me out if you have not done so. Also, um, hit that like button, share me out, and comment. This is an open-ended conversation. It's an overdue conversation. I wanted to initially do it yesterday. It's been overdue since long before yesterday, but I'm just now knowing the information and understanding the information, coming into understanding it of the information myself. And so I want to go over it with you guys. So don't forget to share me out. I was trying to get this to y'all yesterday, but a lot has happened, and I'll get into that. Let me speak to a few of you guys that are here live in the chat. Frugal Mama, hey, welcome in. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Where's my claps? Lord, let me put my claps back on here because they didn't took it off. So let me put it on here. Okay, one time for Frugal Mama Wellness with Frugal Mama. Dunzel, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. One time for Dunzel.
For those of you who are catching the replay, I appreciate all of you. Don't forget to leave me a comment. I do read my comments one time for the replay people. And for those of you who are in the bushes, one time for you. I appreciate all of you guys. And remember, anytime you are here live in the chat, you are more than welcome to type sugar in the chat, SHUGA, and Nightbot will drop your link to your channel so that people can connect with you. And I wanted to have this conversation because it's a lot of information well needed. And forgive me if I'm a little dark in here. I do have a light, but I just don't want to turn it on because I'm just having one of those days, y'all, where I just don't want to be bothered. And the least little thing just irks my nerve. Is one of those, I'm having one of those mental days. So, um, yeah, I have this light to help, but yeah. It says happy Friday, everyone. Yes, yes. Hope everyone is having a good Friday. Oh, that looks spooky. Ooh. But anywho, I don't know. If I guess I can keep this light like this. I'm gonna turn it off. We'll just work with what we got because I'm already doing a whole bunch. So I wanted to bring this information to you guys, as I said earlier. It's information that I'm sure all of us have been privy to before. Some of us, the light bulb went off earlier than others. For me, the light bulb just went off recently. And so, as my light bulb is going off, I'm sharing it with others, hoping that it'll spark some their light bulb to go off and spark them to start doing more research to find out more about it, especially if it affects them. So if you know anyone that struggles with any type of mental issues, whether it's depression, bipolar, ADHD, ADD, anything, whether it's mild or severe, you want to share this live with them so they can get this information. It could help change their life, just as it helped with me. And I guess, as I said before, I wanted to share this information yesterday, but in sharing it yesterday, odd enough, and things happen. It's just crazy how things happen, how things have a way of happening, how things are timed. So I recently, well, not recently, but on yesterday when I was supposed to give you guys this information, I found out that a close friend of mine passed away, and it was due to mental illness. And so I did not have the wherewithal to give this information to you guys because I was and am still navigating through that and some other things. So, and I'm aware that we had someone else in our community as well that passed. So, my condolences to you guys who are going through with anyone that has passed or is passed, or if you're dealing with grief, things like that, that may bring on, um, spark you into some type of mental distress. My prayers are for you and just putting out positive energy into the air for us all. So, definitely, as I'm praying for myself, I'll be praying for you guys as well. So, this topic is really sensitive. I would advise if you are struggling with mental illness, I want to give a warning that some of this information, um, it could spark some could push a button. And the video that I'm going to share, the way that the information is being shared is very emotional. So it could spark um, something within you. So I would advise you to proceed with caution. With that being said, let me also say that I am not giving medical advice. I am a medical professional, but I am not your medical professional. I would advise you to talk with your personal health care providers before you make any changes or do anything to your lifestyle that affects you. You need to discuss that with them. The information that I'm giving you is just for educational and informational purposes. I'm just sharing with you my experiences and the experiences of, those who I've been in contact with. And so we're going to share this information because, as you guys know, that we have been on a lifestyle change here, and the focus of the lifestyle change for me solely had been to reverse my diabetes. I was diagnosed with diabetes type 2. And even before being diagnosed with diabetes type 2, I tried everything that the doctors, was telling me to go on this low carb diet, refrain from the sugars, buy different products and all of these different things, do the exercise, and we'll see if we can get it under control before you are a full blown diabetic. Well, those things didn't work. And so I ended up I went from pre diabetic to full blown diabetes type 2. And within the last year, well, within the last 3 years, up until the end of last year, I was taking metformin. I started off on metformin, and then I progressed to metformin and Ozempic. And with being on the Ozempic, I was able to stop my metformin because my blood sugars were being um, taken care of with the Ozempic alone. And so at the end of last year, if it wasn't for my primary care doctor's office closing, I probably would still be on Ozempic now. But because they closed, then I did not have a primary care doctor in Arizona that I could have went to do my assessment to continue receiving my medication, which is my Ozempic, at the rate that I was getting it. And that sparked me to think, well, I need to learn how to do this on my own without the medication, at least until I get back home. Well, that trans caused me to do research and transform to me learning how to manage it without the medication. Hence the lifestyle change of low carb diet, no sugar, no added sugar, and paying attention to my labels. So if in me starting off on that journey and being on that journey, it opened up a book, opened up my mind to different things about insulin resistance and learning how insulin resistance not only affects diabetes, but it affects a whole lot of diseases. Basically, all diseases that we have is linked to insulin resistance, which basically means your consumption of sugar and how your body processes it. Hey, my early welcome in. She said, "Buy your sugar. Hello, listening in the garden. Thank you for being here one time for Mama Shirley. I appreciate you." in my garden today, but it's raining again today. I might get out there and do some snail rolling, but it's a continuous shower today, so I don't think I'll be able to get outside. And that's another reason why I'm kind of in a not in a high vibrational level right now because I can't get outside. I'm in the house. Well, I can get outside, but it's raining, so I can't get out there and do what I want to do in the garden. But I still might do it depending on if the rain slacks up a little bit more. But it's been raining ever since I got home. So on top of that, um, with this subject that we're going through, I want to share this information because, like I said, I found out that the sugar consumption is not only just linked to just diabetes, but it's linked to basically all diseases. Hey, Miss J.K. Gardner, welcome in. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. One time for you. F. Smith Welch, welcome in. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Thank y'all for coming in. Miss Shirley said, I felt like that last week. Yes, man. I just was like, well, I'm coming home and gonna dive feet first in there, but I can't. I'm stuck in the house for now. But it's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna we get through it. You got through it, Miss Shirley. I'm gonna get through it too. It's just gotta be patient. And this is helping me now, being able to do this live. So it's helping me now. Um But like I said, going through my lifestyle change, it opened my mind to see that what the method that I'm doing by eliminating the sugar and eliminating overeating and things like that, it not only affects just diabetes, but it affects all diseases. Things from as simple as you having acne, all of that is has to do with or has a connection to the food that we put in our bodies. And so we're going to talk about the mental health aspect of it all. And I'm so glad. Hey, Netta, welcome in. Thank you for being here. Netta's Nest, I appreciate you. Use patience. She said, I'm going to stay in the bushes until I get home. Okay. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. But I'm so glad Netta is here and Mama Shirley is here with the listening ear because they are my fellow healthcare professionals. So they will be able to amen and put their 2 cents in about this subject as well because I know that they've experienced some things as well. So I want to share this with you guys because it's a lot of us suffering from mental health diseases, and I want us to be at our best at 100% mental wise. And I don't want us to be struggling. We shouldn't be struggling from mental health at the hands of somebody else because of somebody else is purposely putting things in the foods and that we consume or the clothes that we wear or you know things that we need essentially. They are intentionally putting things in there to sabotage us. And so I just simply want to create an awareness so that you guys will know, so you can have the choice to decide if you want to uh consume these things or purchase these things or have these things in your life instead of allowing trusting someone else to make the decision for you, and then you end up finding out you have a disease and you don't know why. So it's too much technology out here, too much um the information is just wide open at this point, so we don't have any excuses anymore because the blind basically have been taken off. I feel like we are living in a time to where people have been lying to us for a long time, and now They seem to be saying, "Yeah, I'm lying," and I don't care anymore. I really don't have any conviction about lying. So they doing it right in front of your face. And so I feel like we got to step up and take care of ourselves. Give me. Okay, y'all. Sorry about that interruption, but I'm back. I'm back. My son, we got a lot of phone calls coming in. As you guys know, he is entering college. And so we be having to answer the phone from numbers that we don't know. And so anyway, but I digress. So we're gonna get started. So Dunzel says, let's see, he says, I'm glad you're taking care of your health and diabetes. Thank you, Dunzel. I appreciate that. And doing it, I'm trying to, create awareness for other people so, you know, they won't have to go down a path that I went down unless you choose to do it. I feel like some of us, the things that we suffer with are, if we were given the choice to not do it, I think we would have made better choices. But unfortunately, we have been lied to about a lot of things. And like I told you before, as a healthcare provider, I feel that it is my duty to let you guys know about these things. Because if I don't, I will be doing a disservice not only to myself, but to the public that I serve. And so the video that I will be sharing, we're not gonna do the whole video. Um, we're just gonna do some of it. So the video I'll be sharing will be coming from the YouTube page of Diary of a CEO. And the particular video that we will be watching, the title of it, just in case you guys want to go back and watch it, I'll have to link it in the description after the video because I didn't do it before. But the title of the video says Leading Harvard Doctor, the shocking link between your diet, ADHD, and autism. Now don't let the title fool you, because it's not just about ADHD and autism, but it is also about just mental health in general. And so a lot of things that he's going to share in this video, you'll be able to link it to something that you or somebody that you know may be suffering with. And it all boils down to what we are consuming. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's get started.
If a woman has obesity and diabetes, she has quadruple the risk of having an autistic child. But I want to go deeper, and most people don't know this. Something horrible has happened.
Dr. Chris Palmer,
the Harvard psychiatrist
whose groundbreaking new research could be the missing piece to cure the mental health epidemic.
Mental disorders are the leading cause of disease and disability worldwide.
You guys, let me know if you can hear the video. I want to make sure you could put a 1 in the chat to let me know that it's you can hear it and see it. That would be
Governments are
great.
actually labeling them as terminal illnesses and to allow people to die by assisted suicide. And they're going to allow them to die because they know what I'm saying is true. They know that our treatments fail people year after year after year. And what I'm here to say is you can, in fact, get better.
How?
I struggled with mental illness myself for 20 years. I tried to kill
Thank
myself
you, Miss
several
JK.
times.
Thank you,
There was no
Denzel.
hope for me whatsoever. And I was furious with the mental health field for being so incompetent. And I wanted to try to help. And the thing that people have not opened their eyes to is the science of metabolic health. And there's tiny things in our cells that can heal and recover people who have had chronic, horrible mental illnesses.
Really?
Yes. And if autism is genetic, it shouldn't quadruple in 20 years. These are facts, and we can do something about it today. But the easiest way to understand it is that...
Quick one. This is really, really fascinating to me. On the back end of our YouTube channel, it says that 69.9% of you
Okay, we don't need to hear that part. So as he gets to the good part, I will unmute it. But it's just an opportunity to tell you guys, if you haven't shared out the live, go ahead and share it out. Just in case someone has not received the notification, because this is going to be some great, excellent information.
Chris, when you speak, before we started recording, you speak with a deep, authentic sense of mission. And that underneath there is a personal driver that is unimitatable and that is getting you out of bed every day. Because I could see it in your eyes. I could see it in the way that you said the words that you said to me. Where does that drive begin for you? What was the catalyst moment in your life that inspired you and gave you that fire that seems to be unquenchable to pursue the path that you've pursued?
You know, I struggled with mental illness myself, starting in childhood. Nobody recognized it. Nobody diagnosed it. I didn't know what it was. Nobody knew what it was. I just knew I was different and somehow ostracized for who I was. And it just felt like part of who I am. And then a series of horrible, tragic events happened in my extended family when I was about 12 years old. And my mother ended up having a nervous breakdown. She called it a nervous breakdown. It started with what we would call major depression, quickly escalated to depression with suicidality. And then she developed psychotic symptoms. She became very delusional. She got mental health treatment, but the treatment didn't work. They basically were just kind of, in my 12-year-old mind, the psychiatrists were just drugging her. And those drugs weren't making her symptoms better. They weren't restoring her health. She went on to live the rest of her life with a chronic psychotic disorder. And that disorder completely ruined and devastated her life in so many ways. She lost everything. She lost custody of her 8 kids. She lost all of her money, everything. The courts didn't give her any support or any money. I had my own struggles.
Okay, before he goes any further, let me just say this just in case for those of you who don't have any experience or don't know anything about mental health and how it goes. Normally with mental health, when you have a mental health disease, basically you're put on medication and to see if it works. They That's like with any other disease. They can't guarantee you for sure that this medication that we're going to give you is going to cure you. Please always remember that any medical professional that you're going to, they are practicing, okay, medicine. That means that they are trying things out to see if it works. It's not a definite cure. Okay, make sure you go into that with that mindset, and keep that mindset when he's talking about medications not working. So when someone goes to see a mental health physician, they start off with medications to try to see which one works for you, because as we know, every person is different. So that means everybody's going to react differently to each medication. Just because this medication worked for this group of people in this study that they did doesn't mean that it's going to work on this patient. But because this patient is similar to the people that were part of this study, or has the same things, has the same issue as the people that was part of this study, then that's how they choose what medication to start them off with or to give them with. And that's how it goes. So people who are going through mental health issues, 9 times out of 10, they're trying medications over a course of time, trying to see what works. And so you can imagine that puts them in a position of you're just waiting for something to work. In the meantime, whatever you're struggling with is not getting better, and could possibly be getting worse. And it could possibly be getting worse because of the medication that they're trying, or just that disease itself is progressing further. Okay, so keep that in mind as he's saying that the things weren't working.
Even worse with mental illness after all of that. I ended up leaving home before I finished high school. I had chronic depression and suicidality and OCD and other things. And the mental health field was worthless for me and probably caused a lot of harm for me. And so at the end of the day, the reason I'm a psychiatrist is because I recognize how horrible and devastating mental illness can be. And I came to the field really angry with the mental health field for being so incompetent. And I wanted to try to help. I wanted to try to maybe contribute to better solutions for people.
My futile attempts to save you from the ravages of mental illness lit a fire in me that burns to this day. I'm sorry I didn't figure this out in time to help you. May you rest in peace.
That's my mom. And that's the dedication of the book. Her story and the devastation to her life is the thing that drives me to this day. And I just know that there are hundreds of millions of people just like her, with different diagnoses, with different symptoms. But the devastation to their lives is the same. And those people deserve better. And I want to help them. I want to get them better treatment.
Those people exist on some kind of, I guess, multiple different spectrums of disorder. What are those spectrums of disorders? And what are those disorders that you're referring to when you say those people are the people that I want to help?
People who are diagnosed with a mental illness. And so, the diagnoses are all over the map. We have all of these different diagnoses in the DSM-5-TR, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychiatry. which is kind of considered the Bible of psychiatry. And it has all of these labels in it: schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder, alcohol use disorder, which
Okay, I'll pause that just so you guys who are not healthcare professionals and don't understand what he's talking about when he says the Bible of psychiatry. Well, the DSM-5, that is just a book, or basically, in simple terms, it's a book with the list of all the diseases that a person could be labeled. You can label a person with. So that's what he's referring to. And in that book, it just lists like those diseases. And they have a code assigned to each one. So if somebody goes to the doctor and they say, okay, we're going to label this person ADD, they go to that book, find that code, and they put that code in there, and that code is attached to that patient. Then that code allows them to see what medications or what is the steps for treatment for that person. So that's what he's referring to.
most people know as alcoholism, other addictions, anorexia nervosa, but also autism spectrum disorder, or dementia that most people know as Alzheimer's disease. That those are all of the labels in our kind of Bible of psychiatry. And the reality is that when you look at the treatment outcomes for people who are getting treatment for those diagnostic labels, there is no doubt that our treatments do work for a lot of people, millions of people. And so millions of people are helped. Their lives can be saved by the current treatments that we have. And I'm not here to take that away from anyone. So for people who are getting treatment and those treatments are working, keep getting that treatment. I don't want to interfere.
Mama Shirley said she took coding, and those codes are used for billing purposes too.
With anyone's access to those medications or psychotherapies or electroconvulsive therapy or whatever treatment they're getting, I don't want to stand in the way. But there are far too many people just like my mother who did everything they were asked to do, who took all of the pills, who showed up for their therapy appointments, who did everything they were asked to do, and they're not getting better. Mental disorders as a whole are now the leading cause of disease burden and disability worldwide. And it's not because those people aren't getting treatment. Many of them are getting treatment. Yes, there are people who can't afford treatment or can't get access to care, but a lot of people are getting treatment. I work at one of the best psychiatric hospitals in the world. I have the privilege of doing that. And we see patients that aren't getting better. We see them all the time, day in and day out. And the crisis, the tragedy is that some governments are actually now moving to labeling mental illnesses as terminal illnesses.
Hey, Sylvia, welcome in.
The Canadian
Thank you for being
government
here.
in March of 2024 is going to allow people to die by assisted suicide because of a treatment-resistant mental illness.
Really?
Yes.
Y'all, did y'all hear that? Let me rewind that. Okay, so he told you that there are people that's getting treatment, but they're not getting better. And because they're not getting better, they have decided that they will, instead of allowing these people to continue to live their life, trying to continue to figure something out with the medications, or just continue to live in, if they tired of going through that, then they have came up with a law that's going to allow these people to unalive themselves with the help of medical professionals. It's already in effect. Already. Okay, let me rewind that so y'all can hear it.
Or whatever treatment they're getting. I don't want to stand in the way. But there are far too many people just like my mother who did everything they were asked to do, who took all of the pills, who showed up for their therapy appointments, who did everything they were asked to do, and they're not getting better. You know, mental disorders as a whole are now the leading cause of disease burden and disability worldwide. And it's not because those people aren't getting treatment. Many of them are getting treatment. Yes, there are people who can't afford treatment or can't get access to care, but a lot of people are getting treatment. I work at one of the best psychiatric hospitals in the world. I have the privilege of doing that. And we see patients that aren't getting better. We see them all the time, day in and day out. And the crisis, the tragedy is that some governments are actually now moving to labeling mental illnesses as terminal illnesses. The Canadian government in March of 2024 is going to allow people to die by assisted suicide because of a treatment-resistant mental illness.
Really?
Yes. They're going to allow them to die. And they're going to allow them to die because they know what I'm saying is true. They know that our treatments fail people year after year after year. And those people become desperate and hopeless. And they give up on treatment for good reason, because they've participated in treatment for decades. And it hasn't helped
Hey,
them.
Brother Zell, welcome.
And the Canadian government has now made the decision that they should be allowed to die with the help of a physician who can prescribe deadly medications and make it easy for them to die by suicide. The UK is now labeling some people with eating disorders as terminal eating disorders. And that maybe, if they've exhausted treatment, if they've had treatment for several years or more than a decade, well, treatment's just not going to work for them. So let's call them terminally ill with an eating disorder. People are frustrated and hopeless. Again, I'm not talking about the people for whom treatment's working. If treatment is working for someone, if they're taking a pill and it's working, fantastic. You're lucky. Keep doing it. And I don't want to interfere with anyone's access to that treatment. But we can't hide from the tragic realities of the world.
For all of
Okay, before he go any further, do y'all hear this man say if somebody is diagnosed with something like bulimia or any other eating disorder or mental disorder, they are labeling it as terminal, meaning that's a disease that they can't cure and it's going to cause you to be unalive. And they are okay with that. And so what they're doing is basically giving you end of life, putting you in end of life stage care and assisting you with unaliving yourself. When there is I don't want to say the wrong word, CURE, there is a solution to this, but it's not the solution that they're pushing. So instead of them saying, okay, well, our method is not working, let me go ahead and tell you the truth and give you the answer to this problem. No, they saying, well, since what we trying to give you is not working, we just going to help you off yourself. The world that we live in, y'all, if that don't make you wake up, I don't know what will.
those people that they might have extreme anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, OCD, these extreme sort of mental health disorders. What is it that you want to put into their hearts and minds with your work, with the message that you're spreading? What is it that those people need to know? And I say that not as all of the details, which we're going to go into, but the very top line message that, maybe in a sentence, you want those people to have?
If you have been trying treatment and those treatments aren't working for you, please don't give up. There is hope. You can, in fact, get better. If you understand the science, you can get better.
The mental health conversation, the prevalence of mental health, lots of these things seem to have changed in the last 28 years. What is the state of mental health as we sit here today? And how has that changed in the 28 years that you've been at Harvard and working in this field?
I think I have a slightly different perspective. Yours sounded more hopeful than mine. You kind of said things have changed in 28 years. And tragically, I actually feel like they haven't changed a whole lot. If you look globally at the problem of mental illness is increasing. It is not stagnant and is not decreasing. It is increasing in prevalence throughout the world. Prior to the pandemic, about 1 billion people had a mental or substance use disorder, representing about 13% of the world's population. And that was just in one given year, 2017. The pandemic added insult to injury, and rates are much higher now. And the rates of mental illness have been increasing across a wide range of diagnostic categories. Rates of autism in the United States over the last 20 years have quadrupled, a fourfold increase. Rates of ADHD are up and through the roof. Rates of bipolar disorder in adults. A lot of people think bipolar disorder, that's genetic. Well, in adults in the United States over the last 20 years, rates have doubled. In children and adolescents, rates are through the roof, up exponentially, 1,000-fold percent. Rates of plain old bread and butter depression, major depressive disorder. The Gallup poll does an annual survey in the United States of current and lifetime prevalence of depression. And just this year in 2023, rates of both current prevalence and lifetime prevalence reached all-time ever recorded highs. So we have a catastrophe. We have an epidemic. Mental illness is a growing, escalating problem. And I wish that I could say our treatments were dramatically better. There is no doubt we do have new treatment options. We have ketamine and psychedelics. We've got transcranial magnetic stimulation, which wasn't around when I first started. We have some new medications, but the real answer is the medications that we have are no better than the old medications because they're all based on the same mechanisms. So companies are simply repeating what we already know kind of sort of works. And they're just making new molecules that kind of sort of do the same thing. And so they still just kind of sort of work. They don't work for everyone, and they even fail to work for most people. In the largest study ever done of depression, when people come in, the very first antidepressant treatment they get, over 4,000 people treated at the best academic centers that we have in the United States. The first antidepressant treatment, only about 30% are remission. That means 70% still have major depressive disorder. They have enough symptoms to still be labeled clinically depressed. Even if the pill helped them a little bit, it didn't help them enough to make enough of their symptoms go away. Now, even those 30% who got a remission, many of them are still having low-grade symptoms. Like all of their symptoms didn't go away. And after 4 levels of treatment, the original published report said that 67% got a remission after 4 different types of treatment.
Now he talking about this is at the best of the best facilities, giving these people supposedly the best treatment. And these are the results. But I wanted to pause right there to address Mama Shirley says the suicide rate in the hospice is going to explode. They are definitely going to explode if they tell the right numbers. Now, in my thinking, it's just my thinking now, they may not even label some of these people, which technically it is suicide, but they might not even label them as a suicide death, um, especially the ones that are medically assisted. It should be rated. It should be labeled as that. But to keep the numbers down and to keep the general public from being outraged, yeah, they're gonna find some kind of way to label these people so that those numbers it don't look so it won't be so alarming. That's what I think. I don't think all of them is gonna be grouped together because they're gonna find a way. They're gonna find a way.
For major depressive disorder. If we take that at face value, that means 1/3 of patients are still clinically depressed after 4 levels of treatment. Other researchers have challenged that 67% figure because the reality is half of the people in that study dropped out because it just wasn't working out for them. So we got a problem there. Like this protocol clearly isn't working out well for people when half of the people are dropping out of your study. And the second problem is that there are some researchers who point out that they changed the criteria for remission during the study. They prospectively said they were going to define remission in a very certain way using certain metrics. Those researchers said if they stuck to the protocol, only about 35% got a remission after 4 treatment levels.
They changed the rules to make it be
That would mean
presentable.
2/3 of people, after getting 4 levels of treatment, are still clinically depressed. And that is the current state of affairs for depression, something that we all know. It's something that we've got so many treatments for. If we look at more quote unquote serious mental disorders like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, the results are abysmal. The one large study of 6,000 patients with schizophrenia, only 4% of the patients got a recovery, meaning that their symptoms were in full and complete remission. They had a decent quality of life, and that they were able to function in the world. They were able to have a job or go to school. Only 4% of people with schizophrenia got that using our best treatments available today. Those statistics aren't a lot better than they were 50 years ago, tragically.
Chris, when people say to you, or when people say the quite common rebuttal that the reason we're seeing this rise in mental health disorders is just because there's more of a conversation about it, so more people are stepping forward, we now have a word for it, so there's just more labeling, and these mental health disorders, like the ones you've named, and even things like ADHD and autism, it's just because there's more conversation going on. And these things aren't, in fact, increasing.
That is a common argument. And I would argue that it's like just putting your head in the sand. The easiest place to get an accurate read on the true prevalence of mental illness, and not just the recognition of it, but the true prevalence of it, is to talk to school teachers who've been teaching for more than 30 years. If you ask them, were you just not recognizing the children 30 years ago who are screaming and tantruming in your classroom? Were you just not recognizing the children who were melting down when they got bad grades and injuring themselves in class? Were you just not recognizing the level of despair and anxiety that you see in children? Did you just have your head in the sand back then? And now, since everybody's talking about it, you see those behaviors, you see those symptoms. The school teachers and the guidance counselors will laugh at you and say, no, no, no. Something has happened. Something horrible has happened. I wasn't ignoring mental health 30 years ago. I wasn't ignoring despair 30 years ago. I wasn't ignoring extreme anxiety and panic. I wasn't ignoring tantrums in my classroom 30 years ago. They are skyrocketing in prevalence. If we look at emergency rooms, so emergency rooms in the United States, I can speak best about statistics here in the United States. But I think in most Western countries, these statistics are similar. We have a crisis in mental health in emergency rooms.
Okay, before he go any further, I'm gonna stop right there and see. Miss Shirley said that they won't put it as the as what it actually is on because insurance claims won't pay for it. What they'll label it is as a terminal disorder on the death certificate, right? Because you won't get paid for it. They won't pay out for it. And we do know that it's all about money. We do know that. So Netta says, we were told in my psych classes, they know how many prisons to build based on children's behavior in fourth grade. Wow. And it ain't this crazy to what he's saying. If you go back, he's saying, suggesting that we go back and talk to the teachers and see about this. When I first heard this part of the video, it brought me back to my time. Now I know back way before my time, you know, um, even then when you go back and look at your family history or hear other people's family history or whatever, or when you watch videos or hear people talk about things, you didn't really hear about like somebody having, it wasn't a lot of mental, I'm gonna say mental retardation kids or people back then. It wasn't as many as I noticed as I got older. Like from the time that I could remember I was little, the first person that I saw, and I'm talking about people like with Down syndrome, stuff like that. The first time I ever saw a Down syndrome person in my life was probably when I got to be like in my double digits, like around 10 or so. And that's because my great grandmother had a family that lived across the street from her, and they had a daughter that was that had Down syndrome. But we had never known about her because she didn't live with them. She wasn't there the whole time we were growing up. We didn't see her until I got like 10 to really know, that there are people like that out in this world. And I saw her, and then I noticed that there were more of them increasing. Well, not just with Down syndrome, but with other diseases. It's like every family you'll be able to see that every family had one. It went from every family being few and far in between to where every family had one, whether it was Down syndrome or whether it was the parent had a mental issue or it was something. As I got older, from 10 on up, it started to be more prevalent. And then as I got older, it became normal for you to see, right? So it makes you think, what if they want to argue that this has been happening and it's just that people are just now starting to talk about it, why have we not seen it? Miss Mama should say, "Hey, everyone, hello everyone, trying to work in the garden, but Bayou subject won't let me." I know, because when I said Down syndrome, I thought about your brother. I thought about him. So I'm sorry, Miss Shirley, if I'm stopping you from working in the garden. I'm sorry. But it's crazy how back then, even when you think about slavery time, it makes me think about what happened to those people that was born during that time and how many was it? It wasn't that much. It wasn't that much. I'm gonna speak even for my family, and I know things get passed down, and certain things. Sylvia said the rain ran me out the car. And look, me too, Sylvia, and I'm mad. I couldn't even get started. But I'm gonna speak for my family. When we go back and we used to have those times where we talk about things that happened in the family and people who talk about our ancestors and generations before and all of that. No mention of any kind of mental person is ever mentioned, never even thought of until like maybe like the 1950s, 60s, around that time. That's when you hear in the conversation as the story goes on, then that's when it starts revving up, where you start hearing about, oh, this person, he was kind of, he just wasn't right. We ain't pay him no mind. It starts revving. It starts getting worse. So that leads me to believe it wasn't as popular, it wasn't as prevalent back then. And so it's increasing now. It's not that people are not talking about it. It's actually that the numbers are increasing. Mike says, too hot to garden, but I will in a bit. Look, I'm waiting, Mike. I'm waiting. It's still raining outside. Okay, let me let him keep going. Let me let him keep going. Here we go.
In particular, youth mental health, but it's across the board. We have all of these children and adolescents showing up to emergency rooms having attempted suicide, or they're becoming psychotic and they're diagnosed with bipolar disorder at skyrocketing rates. And we don't have enough services to treat these people, these kids, these adolescents, our children. We don't have places to put them. So they sit in emergency rooms, not getting optimal care, simply getting medicated, sometimes restrained to a hospital gurney so that they don't try to run away or hurt themselves. Talk to anybody in an emergency room. We're seeing that. Those people weren't hiding in their homes 30 years ago. Something's happening. They are actively acting on mental health symptoms.
Okay, hold on. So Miss J.K. Gardner says, I know that years ago there were separate schools for children with disabilities. Then inclusion came, right? And to me, it seems like the inclusion came because of it's more of them became, the more um, people that were had these issues, to where you can't just have separate schools. It wasn't financially feasible for them to build all these different schools. So you'd have to build a separate school system for them at the rate it was going. So instead of building those separate school systems, they, try to come up with the inclusion. And then inclusion should have been anyway part of it, because they need to be they need the social aspect of it. Netta say, I was raised with mentally challenged individuals in my family. I addition the two towns I was raised in had the two major schools for them. Okay. And the elementary school I attended had a whole wing. Yep. So I'm sure some used to seeing mentally challenged kids, it was norm. Yep. And then like in my school, I'm trying to say my elementary school, we had a school and we had kids that were physically disabled but weren't mentally. Then as I got older, we saw the mental and physical disabled in the same class. But most of my kids in my elementary school that I went to, they were just physically, they could think and they could, I mean, mentally they were fine, but it's just physically they couldn't do the things. And then they didn't have them in the school with us. They had like T buildings, and then they bus would pick them up in the back of the school. So it's like they were hidden. But yeah, they were there, and it was always a small amount of them, maybe like three or four of them, and then they have like five or six teachers back there. I'm like, oh, y'all need all them teachers just for the three or four students. So yeah, it wasn't that many. And then as I got older, going to middle school, they got a whole classroom. High school, you got a whole classroom full of mental kids, right? So something happened. South Florida sunshine. Hey, welcome in, Carol. Thank you for being here. She said, wow, we all have this on the brain. Shawnee just did a live on sensory gardens and planting with individuals on the spectrum. Oh, wow, she did? It's because I'm going to finish reading your comment. My live is about the plants to plant to help your brain and mood tonight. Oh my God, it's crazy. I was just saying how things connect. It's a need for it right now, Carol. It's a very somber feeling right now, and I don't want to say in the world, but amongst people, a lot of people that I know with mental health is very important right now, and it's a lot of people are struggling at this point. And like I just said in the beginning of my live, I just had someone pass away because of mental health. They just found her. She'd been struggling. So the problem was she lost a sibling. It was her and a sibling. The mom and dad, they were a family of four, two adults and two children. And one of the siblings passed away young in his 20s. And so it's been like 20 years that she had been struggling with this mental issue of grief. And you would she would do good, and then she would have her times and up and down, up and down. We all know grief is it doesn't heal. You just learn to deal with it, and it just took a toll on her um this week. And so yeah, mental health is really somber right now, and it doesn't help with this rain and gloominess and cloudiness. Yeah, it doesn't help. Carol said, I was a teacher for 9 years plus and had my state certification for 20, but did not want to do public because ESE teachers would just sign their kids up for class, but I had no paraprofessionals. Wow, you had to do that all by yourself. That's a lot. That's a lot. No paraprofessionals coming in. I had middle school classes of 25 or more and wow, no clue back then. Yep. The classes, because they were basically just trying to save money, just sticking all them kids in one class. Like I said, when I was younger, it was maybe three or four. And then as the mental illness and physical illness increased with individuals, the classes got larger, but the staff didn't. They just stuck all them kids in one class with them same three or four teachers. Back in the late 40s, Mama Shirley say, and 50s, everyone that was not considered normal went was sent to the insane asylum, right? And he gonna talk about that more in depth, and that's the trigger part that I want y'all to get ready for, because if you're already in a unstable mental place, you might want to take caution when we proceed, and I'll warn you guys when we get there again. She said, well, I have ADHD. My daughter has high functioning, but she is working now. I homeschooled her, and now have our son who is on the spectrum and has FAS. Oh my goodness. And Carol, to me, for all of you guys, that in one family, that is sets off a red flag to me, like something has happened beyond your control for it to be like all of you guys that closely affected. Something is not right, that it's an outside factor that's causing this. And that's what this professor is trying to let people know, like something is being done. Netta says, we were blessed to have an elementary school that gave us the exposure and taught to be empathetic to all. Yes, that was good. Carol said, I remember reading about that, Miss Shirley. I felt bad for kids. Oh, yes, sent to the insane asylum. Many can be rehabilitated, some extra help for the rest of their life. Yep. And that's what this doctor is trying to let people know. Like, for those of you, if the healthcare system has given up on you, don't give up, because there is still hope. Mike says, in the 80s, Reagan pulled a you know who and cut off funding, right, for mental health and facilities, putting unwell people right onto the streets and using the prisons to deal with them had a huge effect. And when he did that, I firsthand witnessed the effect of that. I was in nursing school when my state felt the effects of that, because several mental facilities were shutting down while I was doing my clinicals. And my clinical class was the last class to do their rotation at mental facilities where people were there and it was going to be shut down. They didn't have nowhere for them to go. These people were just going to be released on the streets. And I know, from adults to adolescents to children, these people being released back into society were not only a threat to themselves, but to the community, that they were being put back in because they needed help, and they were no longer going to be able to get the help that they needed. And the help that they need, the true help that they need, is being withheld from them. Instead, they're just pumping them with medicines that they know do not work. It put a stigma on mental illness as a drain on society and made mental illness a crime. Yep. South Florida says that was a mess. They all a mess. Politicians are so removed from an average person life, struggling paycheck to paycheck. They are. They are. They don't care. They don't care. I'm going to put it like that. So let's see. He is saying that, they releasing these people back on the streets. So putting everybody at risk, not only putting these people at risk for themselves, but putting everybody at risk. And they have the answer, but won't get.
They are acting out of despair. The suicide rate has gone up. In the United States over the last 20 years, total suicide rate has gone up by about 30%. But if you look at a different statistic called deaths of despair, it has doubled in 20 years. Deaths of despair includes not only suicides, but also deaths from alcohol use, drug overdoses, and others. Those are mental health problems. Those are addictions. They are mental health disorders. They are in DSM. Rates have doubled in 20 years. People weren't dying 30 years ago and we just didn't recognize it. And now we're recognizing death. Now we're recognizing suicide. We didn't really recognize it 30 years ago, but now we recognize. No. We know what death is. Morticians know how to recognize it and diagnose it. And the rates are skyrocketing, a doubling in 20 years. That is nothing to ignore.
That begs the question, what do you believe is causing it? Because clearly, when I've heard people, when I say people, I mean just the things you see in culture and media and maybe on Instagram that say, there's a chemical imbalance in people's brains. I've always struggled with that. I understand there might be sometimes, but I've struggled with that as a broad answer to a very complicated, nuanced set of issues, because I just have a bias to believing that humans aren't born broken. I believe that, my ancestors go back I've got a lot of ancestors that I understand how natural selection and evolution works. I don't think that I was born broken. So I think maybe there's an environmental factor, maybe something I'm doing or something we're doing as a society is increasing these rates of suicidality that you talk about. What do you believe is the answer that we're missing or not talking about enough?
The root causes which we can get to, and I have lots of ideas and thoughts on it. If you want to get into the weeds of like what are the exact causes, we can talk about that. But the thing that people have not opened their eyes to is the science of what we call metabolism or metabolic health.
Boom,
And
there we
what
go.
I ultimately am arguing, the easiest way for me to put it, is that what I'm arguing is that mental health conditions, the chronic serious ones in which the brain isn't functioning properly, brain disorders that are causing mental health symptoms, those are the things I'm talking about now.
That we're all susceptible to, you believe?
I think we're all susceptible to it. Those, in fact, are metabolic disorders affecting the brain. And so the easiest way to understand why do we see skyrocketing rates of mental illness, it's not a coincidence that we're seeing those skyrocketing rates at the same time that we see skyrocketing rates of obesity, overweight, diabetes, and prediabetes, which are also metabolic conditions. That all of those things are rising simultaneously. And that the brain is an organ. And so some people can have metabolic problems, and some people can be thin and still have a metabolic problem. So I'm not at all saying that obesity is the only driver, because a lot of times people think about it in that way. So are you saying obesity comes first and then everybody gets a mental illness? No, I'm not saying it that way. Sometimes the mental illness starts first, because it's a manifestation of metabolic dysfunction in the brain.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause right there and amen him on that, because all people who are obese, if you ever watch those shows, some of those people, they eat because of mental things that they're going through because of depression, and they've been depressed for 10 years, and over the past 10 years they're trying to eat their feelings away. So I can attest to that. And then hence you got the bulimia, those who struggling with that, struggling with mental issues. They try to pacify themselves with the food, but then go up and do the um get it back up, or the anorexia. That's mental issues. You suffering from mental issues. Carol says, right, back then, two places were horrible. Right. Excuse me. The hospitals and asylums needed a whole revamp, not to be completely taken away. Exactly. They definitely need to be revamped. We're going to get some more into that as we go on. She says, and yet we have heavy metals in our air, water, medicines, cosmetics, and fertilizers, and pesticides, and abundance in many soils, right? And some is on purpose, is how I feel. I agree with you, Carol. And that's what I think is the issue. It has increased. If we are weak and sick, we are easy to control. Yep. So that's what I think it is. Carol just really just wrapped it up. Oh, and downgrading the dangers of sugar. They definitely do that. Look, Netta says, sugar, you got me thinking. This little country we live in has an abundance of physically and mentally challenged individuals. Right. We have several schools, houses, group home facilities, and hospitals. We definitely, yeah, never thought about it until now. Is it from the foods, the community chemicals? She said, "What the hell is going on? What the hell?" It's all, I think, this is just my thinking, it's all a part of the plan. It's all a part of the plan. She says, oh, she's talking to Netta. I'll be looking into who had that land. Yeah, you gotta look at it. Look at it. Who had it? Because I did a series on Do You Really Know What You're Eating? Where we found out the four companies that um that had a hand in the fertilizers that we use, and then we found out that the fertilizers that we use were just basically war things that they used in the war, and they just repurposed it as fertilizers. It was used in the war for chemical warfare, but now they're reselling it to us as things that we should be using, that we can on things that we consume and on our clothing and things like that. Yeah, you have to, it's a, when you do deep dive research to find out the background story of some of these things, you be like, wow. And some of these companies are not US based, they're from other countries, so it makes you think, look, they got a, do they have a vendetta against us that they trying to get they get back, and so they pushing this stuff to hurt our people because we hurt they people. So yeah, it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot to think about. A whole lot to think about. She said we had a major industry to the west that dumped fuels years later, similar brain cancer in many neighbors who built there that got quieted real quick. Yep. In several places. Oh, what is the title by you? I will listen to that for sure. The title of this is, it's on the Diary of a CEO, and it's the title is The Shocking Link Between Your Diet, ADHD, and Autism. And they're interviewing leading Harvard doctor. So yeah, this stuff is something being done. And I'm saying something is a lot being done. I'm sorry, y'all. I was reading a message. It's a lot being done that we are not aware of, that we have to pay much more close attention to, because these things are harming us so that somebody else can make money, and in turn for somebody else, it seems like besides the money, to me it seems like uh somebody is trying to get revenge or trying to avenge something, because some of these companies are not US based, right? So I'm just saying, that is where the term comfort food comes from. Mama Shirley is telling y'all. Mike says, today my local radio station had a semicolon tattoo day. What? Oh, that's what I wanted to tell y'all about. Shoot, the thought just left me again. Something that Carol mentioned. Oh, about the stuff being dumped. Dang, it came and left again. Oh, it'll come back to me again. It'll come back to me again. But it has something to do with, oh, the cancer alley stuff. So when I was in school, um, growing up, we only knew that Cancer Alley was just one particular place, and they would say Cancer Alley because of the type of chemicals this one chemical plant was releasing into the environment. But now there are cancer alleys all over the United States. So we have to be careful because there are chemical plants everywhere, all over the United States now. And you never know what they are putting into your water and your air and your food. You have to be careful. And you have to, if you're not going to take the time to look and do the research, grow your own stuff so that you'll be able to control it to some extent. And then if you can't grow it, find someone else that's growing it and support them. Cause you gotta, it's a matter of life and death. Basically, the bottom line is it's a matter of life and death. Mike says, plus we are trained to eat when celebrating birthdays. Being sad, yep, they prey on it. They prey on our weaknesses. It means a lot. It means not a period. Don't end yourself. It's a semicolon. There's a better day. Oh, that's cute. So that's what they celebrating today. Oh, okay. That is neat. I've never heard of that before. And that falls in line to just what he was saying on this episode, because they show are labeling people with mental health as terminal diseases. So instead of it being an end all, they're encouraging people that that's hope. That's cute. That's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Mike. And Carol, thank you for clarifying that for me. Okay, let's see what else he is saying.
And it basically means the brain isn't working right. And so somebody might have unrelenting depression or unexplainable anxiety or psychotic symptoms or bipolar symptoms or eating disorder symptoms or substance use disorder symptoms, that they may have symptoms, but all of those things are a manifestation of metabolic dysfunction in the brain.
Can you explain metabolic dysfunction to me like I'm a 10-year-old?
The easiest way to explain it is that our bodies and our brain are made up of cells. And all of our cells need two essential things to function properly. They need food, oxygen. Those are the big ones that most people know. It gets much more complicated fast because food contains all sorts of nutrients. So we need certain vitamins and nutrients, and hormones are playing a role. All sorts of things are playing a role. But at the end of the day, that's what metabolism is. Metabolism is taking food and oxygen and keeping us alive. They are fundamental to our health, but also the function of our cells. And when something goes wrong in that process, and there are lots of things that can go wrong, when something goes wrong with taking food and oxygen and turning it into energy, the cell can malfunction. And when it happens in your brain, it means that your brain can malfunction. And the way that we know the brain is malfunctioning are all of the symptoms of mental illness. When somebody has depression for no good reason, when somebody has anxiety for no good reason, when somebody just has experiences like hallucinations or delusions for no good reason, that all of those things represent the brain malfunctioning.
If you could take me one step deeper into this idea of, food and oxygen being converted into energy in the cell, something goes wrong there. What goes wrong? Why does it go wrong?
So the real answer is it's extraordinarily complicated. There are many pathways in metabolism. There are many things that play a role. The easiest way to understand it and the way to unify it, the helpful insight, the immensely helpful insight. And this is new cutting edge information. Most people don't know this. But there are these tiny things in our cells called mitochondria. And they are actually the primary sites in our cells that food and oxygen are getting converted into energy or building blocks for our cells. When you do a deep dive into the science of mitochondria, you can actually begin to understand what's happening in the brains and bodies of people with mental illness. And you can begin to understand all of these very complicated things, like why would neurotransmitters become imbalanced? Like what's causing a neurotransmitter imbalance, if there even is one? What's causing a hormone imbalance? What's causing higher levels of inflammation in the brains and bodies of people with metabolic and mental disorders? What about the gut microbiome? How does that play a role? But what about stress and trauma? Psychological stress, trauma. How do those things fit in? Mitochondria are actually the scientific way to begin to connect all of those dots and to help us understand why the brains of some people, quote unquote, malfunction, or why they are dysregulated, might be a better way to put it, or why some people can't seem to, quote unquote, get over it, get over a trauma, or get over a breakup with someone. What's going on? Why aren't they more resilient? Why can't they pull it together? Mitochondrial dysfunction, as nerdy and sciencey as that is, can help us connect the dots.
What do I need to know about the mitochondria? What it is? I know it's in every cell in my body. Is there anything else I need to know about it before we explore these through lines and how all of these other things come back and connect to the mitochondria?
So mitochondria are present in most cells in the body.
Oh,
not every single human. The glaring example are red blood cells, which actually lose their mitochondria. They have them when they are first forming, but then they lose their mitochondria. So red blood cells, interestingly, don't live all that long. We're constantly creating new ones and turning them over. So most people know mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell, which means they take food and oxygen and turn it into ATP. And that's what most people learn in school. They're the powerhouse of the cell. But I'm here to tell you they are so much more than that. There are hundreds or thousands of them in most cells. They are highly dynamic. At one point, the theory of multicellular life on planet Earth is that mitochondria were once independent living bacteria, and that another single cell organism engulfed that very first bacterium. And the two of those organisms lived. They stayed alive. Usually when you get engulfed by another organism, that means getting eaten and you die. For whatever reason, these two stayed alive and they became symbiotic with each other. And actually, that event is thought to maybe have only happened once on Earth. And that single organism evolved into all multicellular life that we know today. So all living organisms that we can see with our eyes, plants, all animals, are evolved from that same organism. So mitochondria divide and replicate. They actually move around cells. They fuse with each other. They bud off from each other. They form patterns around the cell nucleus, which plays a role in which genes get expressed.
Let me pause him right there. This is just a little science for those of you who there might be a go over a little bit of y'all's heads, but for those of you that do understand the science, y'all know when you was in school, you were taught that there's one mitochondria in each cell. He just said is more than one, it's several. and then they replicate and divide and all of that. In school now, they don't teach that. It's still in school now when you learn a cell anatomy, the anatomy of a cell, they're teaching just is one mitochondria. They're still teaching that in school now. I wonder why.
Or don't get expressed. They do all sorts of things.
When people say that we have a predisposition, a genetic predisposition to mental health disorders, and that, you'll have depression if depression runs in your family, etc., is there merit in that is there evidence to support that?
Absolutely. So we know that mental illness runs in families. Genes explain some of that, but not all of that. The environment actually can influence things called epigenetic factors, which are factors that control the expression of genes. They turn genes on or off. And those epigenetic factors are actually inheritable. You can inherit them from your parents. And so it's not all strictly genetics. Some of it is epigenetic. So first and foremost, there are no genes that are specific to specific disorders. Most people think, well, if bipolar disorder runs in my family, there must be a bipolar disorder gene. And in fact, there isn't a bipolar disorder gene. There are genes that increase risk for bipolar disorder, but at the same time, they also increase risk for schizophrenia and epilepsy and autism and depression and other types of mental and neurological disorders. And if you look at the unifying theme, like, is there a theme for these genes? Is there a common pathway that can help us better understand mental illness? The common pathway is that most of the genes are affecting metabolism and mitochondria. One research study that came out a couple of years ago, researchers have been looking for years at a high-risk gene for schizophrenia. And we know that people who have this very, very rare gene, so almost nobody has it, but if you do have it, you're at high risk for developing schizophrenia, along with lots of other mental illnesses. But schizophrenia is the big one. And the researchers did this deep dive into trying to understand what exactly is this gene doing. And at the end of the day, they said it's affecting mitochondria. And that is probably how it is causing schizophrenia.
Metabolism, that happens as a result of the work of the mitochondria. Is that accurate? So we make sure I'm clear on them before we proceed.
90% of metabolism, at least, is occurring in mitochondria. So that definition, as a scientist, I have to say, isn't 100% accurate, because there is a thing called glycolysis that can happen in cells where you can actually produce ATP without using mitochondria.
What's that? So
ATP is usually known as the energy currency of living organisms, of cells. And so, and that ATP ends up making cells work. It is the energy that's flowing around cells, or the molecule that's flowing around cells, to make receptors work, to make all of the machinery of cells work. And that becomes relevant. Maybe some of your listeners will know this. If you exercise really hard, like you're running a marathon, or you're running as far as you can get with a marathon before you absolutely are exhausted and you just have to stop, your mitochondria will actually become maxed out. That is what's preventing you from running, is your mitochondria max out. And it's like you don't have enough of them, or they're not healthy enough. And so they can't keep you going. They can't keep your muscles going. And so you peter out. And when you peter out, you turn to this process called glycolysis, which actually ends up producing lactic acid, or lactate. And so runners will get higher levels of lactate, and then that can create soreness and all sorts of things. So metabolism is really the process of taking food and oxygen, and turning it into energy or building blocks. And that can occur on a small scale outside of mitochondria. But as soon as the mitochondria in most of your cells are dysfunctional or dead, you die. There's no way around it.
So let's use some of those examples that you gave earlier. You talked about stress and trauma and these kinds of things. I'm really keen to know how a traumatic event can have an impact on your metabolism, your mitochondria, which then manifests as a mental illness. So if we take trauma, for example, people go through early trauma in their life. I don't know, you had a very traumatic upbringing. How do you think that, maybe even in your case, if you were able to see inside of your body and what was happening, that external traumatic event came into your body in some way, caused a physiological reaction, had an impact on your metabolism, which results in a mental health disorder of sorts?
It gets a little complicated because it goes through a couple of stages. So I'll try to walk you through it in the simplest way I can. When somebody is first traumatized, everybody, if they are normal, will have symptoms. If you get traumatized, you will experience fear, you will experience hypervigilance, you will want to fight or flee, or you might freeze, or you might surrender, you might beg for forgiveness or mercy or whatever.
It's a lot of signs.
Everybody is going to have those reactions. In my mind, those reactions are not disorders. They are not malfunctioning brains or malfunctioning anything. So everybody will have that. However, when that happens, it immediately changes your metabolism. The easiest way to understand it is the sympathetic nervous system gets turned on fiercely if the trauma is really bad, because you have to defend yourself. Your life is threatened. Your safety is threatened. Traumas can even be less extreme than that. You can have highly stressful events in which maybe, even though your physical life isn't threatened, maybe all your money is threatened. The stock market crashes and you lose everything. And you now think, I'm worthless. I'm penniless. I'm losing my status in society. I'm going to have to live a very different life. I've just disappointed everybody who depends on me. That could be a trauma, even though by definition, because it doesn't threaten your life, it's not technically considered a trauma.
So for those people that are, they've been through a traumatic event, what then is going on in their body as it relates to metabolism based on that traumatic event?
Trauma immediately changes metabolism. So trauma puts us into this, most people know it as fight or flight mode. And again, there are other responses that one can have. You can surrender, you can freeze, you can do other things. But when people feel threatened, either physically or their reputation is threatened or their identity is threatened, immediately their nervous system and hormones are changing. And the reason they're changing is because our bodies are hardwired to protect us. And in order to protect us, it means that we need more energy, and we need it now. We need more energy in order to be able to run or fight or whatever we need to do. And that means that our heart rate goes up, our blood glucose goes up, cortisol is flowing, adrenaline is flowing through the body. Inflammation is actually occurring, and epigenetic changes are occurring. Memory formation is occurring in a powerful way during a trauma. Memory, our brains are hardwiring this event so that we remember it. We remember this threatened us, and you cannot forget this. This is not a trivial moment. You must remember this for the rest of your life because it's threatening your survival.
And you must remember how to respond to this again?
Not necessarily, because our responses can be all over the map. Sometimes our responses can be quite effective, and other times people can die. They don't.
Okay, so when I listened to this, and my intentions was not to listen to this whole video, but we're gonna listen to a little bit more. So when I listened to this helped me to kind of get an idea for those of you guys who don't understand like the medical part of it. To me, it helped me to link like to a normal person. How would you understand what he is saying? How your metabolism connects with these mental issues that you're having. So, say you having an anxiety attack, right? Hey, GT, welcome in. Thank you for being here. And FR Humphrey, welcome in. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate y'all. There's a drastic chemical change. Exactly. So, say you're having an anxiety attack, okay? And for most of us, or just say if it's not anxiety attack, let's say something like something scared you, okay? And in that moment, changes occur in your body on a cellular scientific level, which causes your heart rate to go up, like he said, which causes your um, blood sugar levels to go up, which causes increase, yeah, increase in your blood flow, increases of everything is increasing your respirations. All of that is happening because of an outside stimulus or because of this circumstances or condition that you're in. Something has caused you to fear, something has caused you to have a panic attack, and these you're exhibiting, showing these physical effects. You're feeling your heart beating, you're having these chest pains, you're feeling a headache, you're feeling lightheaded, you're feeling all of these physical things because something has happened inside of your body reacting to the outside stimulus, right? For some of us, where our bodies are able to respond rather quickly to get you back to a normal state of being. For others, it doesn't. And that's where you get the issues. If your body is not able to go back and return back to a state of normalcy, then you're in that stage, which most of us in a flight stage, where it's a fight or flight. I'm pretty sure most of you have heard that we're in a flight stage for an extended period of time, longer than what we supposed to be. Hence, you have the chronic disease develop. The hypertension ends up being long, or you end up being pre-diabetic, and then after a couple of months you go back and the doctor says, okay, either you're still pre-diabetic or it has progressed further based off of this outside stimulus that gave you this reaction. This is the reaction that your body is having to this situation that you've been in. So he gave an example again, um, of how, like, it doesn't have to be something that physically impacts you. Like, it doesn't have to be somebody hitting you. Or it doesn't have to be something physically that happens to you, but it could be something like that disturbs your mental. Like he said, the stock market crash, and a person that's all their money's in the stock market, you've lost all your money. So then your mind is going into a flight or fight stage. Like, you have to find out how you're going to survive and where you're going to get the money from. And all of that thought processes heightens things in your body, causing you to exhibit physical symptoms. That person might have had hallucinations. They might have had migraines. They might have increased their appetite. So then they are hungry and just keep eating and can't figure out why you can't satisfy this hunger. It's because your body is in an elevated, overstimulated state, right? So in essence, that is what's happening. That is what's happening with mental disorders. your body is trying to figure out how to cope with these changes. And instead of being able to fix it rather quickly, it's being prolonged because of the outside stimulus. These foods that you're eating is not allowing your body to go back into the normal state. It's adding to it because these chemicals, let's take for instance Splendor, okay? And I hope I'm explaining this. I'm explaining it in several different ways, hoping that I hit several different people. But so, take for instance Splendor. Say I'm a diabetic, and they told me that I can't consume sugar because what happens when I consume sugar, my body doesn't know how to process it, and hence I have elevated blood sugar levels in my blood. So I need to, consume Splendor. Okay, so I stopped with the table sugar and I start eating Splendor. Well, unbeknownst to me, I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing by intaking the Splendor, trying to allow my body some time to get back to a state of normalcy, but not knowing that the Splendor has an ingredient in it that heightens what I'm trying to stop. So I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing, but I'm not because I'm actually taking something that was marketed to be good for me, but it's actually detrimental to me, heightening the effects that I'm already in and possibly causing me to be unalive. Let me see what y'all saying. I hope y'all understand. I tried to explain it a little bit better. I don't know how good it. Let's see. I spoke to them. I spoke to. Let's see. Exactly. Okay, so Carol saying exactly, saying that if you have a traumatic incident, like if you have a combination of an incident like from something when you was growing up, it heightens your response. She said I had to. Oh wait, she's talking to them. Let's see. Let's see. Right. So Carol said you may have already have a metabolic weakness and low cortisol going into high stress. So that's just it's just piling on. Right. That's what we're trying to. That's what you try to get back to homeostasis. But the things that we're eating are the things that they're marketing us to eat is that we thinking is taking us back to a state of normalcy or a balance or a homeostasis is not, is heightening it, making it worse and making it harder for you to control it, making it harder for you to get back to that point. Let's see. Yep. Trauma hits different for different individuals. Right. So the effects is different. Carol said it explains why many folks after facing divorce or death suddenly get cancer a year later. Yeah, because all of that stimulus packing on top of each other, your body never has time to process it. And then it's over an extended amount of time. So you're increasing the inflammation. You're getting inflammation on top of inflammation. Your hair falling out. You're getting pimples. You're getting high blood pressure. You're having migraines. You got a cyst. Yeah, it's just snowballing effect. Yes, people did not like me when I did not like me when I said Splendor, and most of the fake sugars have similar or worse metabolic effects. Yep. Hey, Jamia, welcome in. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Yes, it's a lot. So I hope y'all. He just said a whole bunch of scientific stuff, but in essence, all he is saying is these outside stimulants not always are physical things. It's not always going to be a physical trauma to cause you to have these snowball effects. So it could be something that causes you an outside stimulus that's not an actual physical traumatic event, but it causes you to spiral into a mental, causes you to have mental damage or mental trauma. And that's how it relates to the mental space. How you have the overeating when you're depressed or when you're anxious or when you're scared. It's just different for different people. But when you have those things and then it's prolonged over periods of time, hence months, weeks, years. On top of that, it gets worse. But the good thing is it it doesn't matter how long it has happened. It still can, there is hope. It still can be
Don't respond
reversed.
effectively and they are killed. I mean, that would be the worst case scenario. And then there's everything in between where you get a suboptimal outcome. You end up homeless with your psychotic mother. That's not a very effective response.
When I asked that question, I was asking, we see patterns in trauma, like a trauma pattern. There's a trigger, there's a response. And then, I even think about some of the low, small t traumas that I had in my life that meant that I would run from romantic commitment for the rest of my life, for example. And it was like a pattern. I was going through the same loop over and over again. Trigger, Steve's response is like this, causes this outcome. Trigger, so I was wondering if I learned at that very young age that cycle somewhere in my neurons in my brain. So that's why I said, do we then learn the response to that trauma at that point as well?
We learn the response. We remember the response that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we've survived, that is the ingrained memory. The ingrained memory is when this happens, do this, because this is what I did and I survived it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that becomes the default. And then that becomes a default pattern for many people.
Mm-hmm.
At some point in life, it can be actually be quite useful to look at that response. Okay, so when I was 5 years old or 20 years old or whatever, and that thing happened, I responded this way and I survived it. Great. But how's this working out for me now? Is that the optimal response? It's not about beating yourself up for I should have done something different back then. It's simply about recognizing and honoring.
Your light bulb
I did
going
what
off, Carol.
I thought I was the right thing to do. I did my best back then. But I'm smarter now. I'm older now. I'm wiser now. If I could do it again, if I could go back in time as my smarter, wiser self, would I do it differently? And what would the outcome be if I did it differently? And then that becomes highly relevant to today. So when I'm in this romantic relationship now, I keep having this urge to break up because this person is disappointing me in this way. And I feel like she or he is going to threaten me or betray me or whatever. And is that the right approach? Is it true that this person is going to betray me like the person in the past did? Or am I hypersensitive to that? Am I, again, we're wired to look for any clue that a trauma might happen again. So we're going to overinterpret things sometimes in an erroneous way.
So that early trauma or that trauma I experienced made my body go into that survival mode, fired all kinds of ways, and my glucose levels went up, all of these things, all metabolism related stuff happened. How does that then cause a mental health disorder at some point down the line?
If that trauma is not resolved, so for some people, they can experience a trauma. They can be quite effective at mitigating it and move on with their life. Somebody could get into a fight. Somebody could get mugged on the street. They're just walking down the street. Somebody pulls a knife on them or a gun on them and wants to rob them. if somebody manages that trauma highly effectively, let's say you happen to have a black belt in karate and you disarm your assailant very quickly and rapidly, you may not think twice about the trauma. You may actually be emboldened after that traumatic event and think, I'm quite effective and skilled. Wow, those karate classes really came in handy. And I'm quite powerful, and maybe even feel a little more confident than you normally would.
And that's the interpretation element, right, of the situation. So two people could be in the same situation, but have...
So that person still had the same physiological reactions, a gun in your face, or wherever. That person's glucose was going up, their heart rate was going up, all of those metabolic changes were occurring. But so that's a success story. And that's probably a resilient person who moves on and never thinks twice about that trauma, or rarely thinks about it and thinks about it with pride if they do think about it. In the case where it doesn't go well at all, let's leave the extreme out where the person is murdered. Let's leave something less severe than that. But the person is beaten. They are injured severely. They are terrified to go out in public for fear that there could be another one just like that. That person, their fight or flight system is not turning off. Their fight or flight system is now on, at least at a low level, possibly a very high level, for a very prolonged period of time. They are now afraid of the world. Immediately after that type of horrific assault, they are now afraid of the world. They probably aren't sleeping as well. And what's happening physiologically, and we know this, is that those higher cortisol levels are actually causing something called hypermetabolism. Their mitochondria are actually working on overtime because the body is still primed for the world is unsafe. Everything is unsafe. Maybe that person who assaulted me is going to somehow figure out where I live and come through that door any minute. So you're sleeping at night and you hear a sound or you hear a creak and you panic and you wake up and you're startled and you're terrified. Or you sleep at night and you have a nightmare and you wake up and you're reliving that experience and just you're horrified and overwhelmed again.
Is it conscious? Because,
No.
often you speak to people with severe anxiety and they have panic attacks and they don't know why they're having panic attacks. They can't name something that they're scared of or a fear they have.
No, this is not at all conscious. So at this point, in the week or two after a horrific trauma like I've described, I would argue this is not a disorder. This is not the brain malfunctioning. This isn't the body malfunctioning. The brain and body are doing precisely what they are programmed to do, protect you. Your life is in danger. Why? Because somebody just tried to take it. And they were close. They came close to taking your life. They could have killed you. And so your body and brain are trying to protect you. Unfortunately, that comes at a cost. All of this energy going toward the defense system means that energy that should be going toward maintaining your cells is actually being bypassed sometimes. So we know this. So for example, there are these things called stress granules, where cells that are trying to just do basic ho-hum everyday repair work, create some new proteins or new receptors or do some cleanup work. The code for those, which are called messenger RNAs, actually gets sequestered in these little bubbles called stress granules. And what that means is that they're not getting done.
Okay, before he go into some more scientific stuff, and I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. So I'm going to stop right there. And basically, in essence, he's saying just what I explained to you before. So mental health disorders are basically your body is being in this prolonged state of the reaction stage of fight or flight, and your body has at some degree is there, and your body has not returned back to its normal state of um its normal state, its equilibrium, its homeostasis. So just imagine that happening to somebody. Your reaction to, like he said, being mugged, your reaction to that, you're living your life every day with those same emotions, that same glucose level, to some degree elevated level, elevated blood pressure. You're living the rest of your life like that. That explains why you're overeating, you're doing these things, because you're still in that mode. Your body has not returned back to it. And on top of your body not returning back to it, you're adding to it with the foods that you're eating. Those foods that you're eating are sprayed with chemicals that also causes that, and probably elevates it even a little bit more. They're giving you medications. You went to the doctor to explain to him, hey, I have this traumatic event. Now I have these anxiety attacks. Can you give me something to help me calm down, or come down when I have these uh, episodes? But instead, you already feel on edge, so he prescribes you a medication that he tells you will take you down and allow you to feel more calmer. He gives you a medication that in turns elevates it. Isn't that weird? That's not weird, but that's crazy. So in essence, that's what he's saying. They're giving you the medication that's supposed to reverse or decrease or return your body back to normal, but because of the chemicals and the ingredients that they put in that, it's heightening it, it's elevating it, and it's possibly making it worse than what it already is. So it's creating a prolonged period of stress for you. And so those things that manifest for you physically, the overeating, you end up eating a little bit more or a lot more, then you end up with the weight gain, then you end up with all the other issues that you didn't have because of the prolonged exposure, well, not exposure, to the prolonged response that your body is having. Let's see. Yes, stress risk. Yeah, all right, all right. Most antidepressants have the side effect of suicide. Yeah, yeah, because those medications. I'm not gonna say the intentions of that is to decrease it, but that's what they say. That's what they words say. So let me see if I can get to the part to where he says, where he provides like the solution, because he goes on to do some more science stuff. And I'll let you guys watch that part on your own. But let me get to see if I can get to a part where he talks about the science aspect of it. Give me 1 second. Let me get to that. But I hope this is helping a lot of you. Okay, here we go. So let me share this with you guys. Do, 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 do. How does your diet relate to? And I think I'm going to skip over the part that I wanted to share with y'all about um hey Tim, welcome in, welcome in. Oh, am I frozen, y'all? Can y'all see me? I was trying to stop the video and get it to a point. Okay, she said, "Oh, you helped me. This is good." Okay, let me guys. Let me know. I answered the door. Okay. Oh, okay. Let me know if you guys can hear me and see me. Put a one. Oh, okay. Mike say I'm good. Okay. 10 say I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you for coming in, 10. I appreciate you. I was trying to get to the part to where he talks about the diet and how your diet, what you should be doing for your diet and how it affects you um mentally. So, yeah, we're gonna play that part. But I won't get to the part to I don't think where the part that we triggered that I said will trigger you guys. But I wanted to touch on specifically. Well, I guess I can talk about that after we find out about the food. But keep in mind, guys, that back in the day, I was saying that some people were put in insane asylums or mental health facilities, however you want to say it. They were put in there for, to us, it's just crazy reasons. For lack of a better word, it just the treatment did not fit what they needed. Like I mentioned before in my last live, women who were disobedient to their husbands were considered mentally unstable. If they didn't listen to their husband in the US, they were allowed to take their wives and have them committed to an asylum. And in those asylums, their diagnoses were mentally unstable for not listening to your husband, right? But with that being said, if you got committed for something like that, just think about other stuff that people who were normal got committed for and had to be committed to these facilities that were basically doing um, experimental treatments on them. One of them was electrolysis, where they thought that they would shock you. It's kind of like their thinking was like you do a car. If you shock it, it'll cause you to rewire and you'll start thinking right. So they would think giving people several treatments of that would help them. When in essence, if you look at it at a long terms, it really messed them up. A person that didn't have anything wrong with you, if you shocking them, then you're messing them up. You're making it, if they're already okay, but you're shocking them thinking that something is wrong, then you're messing them up. Then on top of that, Miss Shirley mentioned that they would do lobectomies, which means that they will remove parts of your brain. Some of it they would take that part and study it, and some of it they would remove it because they think that's the part that's causing you your problem. So if they removed it, then you will be acting right. How are you supposed to function correctly if that part of your brain is removed? And then back then there wasn't enough study for them to be able to say that this specific part of your brain is just for this function. They not only removed what they thought was the problem, but they removed other things. And then they didn't put anything there to replace what they removed. So, say for instance, your brain or the way your body works is it's a chain, it's a flow, it's an order to things. And if you're missing something in that order, that's what causes problems. So if they take out the part of your brain that it needs to go through that path, how can you get to the end of the steps if you're missing something? If you're trying to solve a math problem and you're missing a step, do you get to the solution? No, you may get a solution, but it's not the right one. So they did that to a lot of people. Look, postpartum, people with postpartum. Thank you, FR, were admitted to there. And that's not, just think you have, we call it now the baby blues. And usually with time, now they say with time that'll go away, or the mother will eventually grow out of it. But back then they didn't think of it like that. So that mother goes into that asylum with postpartum depression, and 9 times out of 10 she was never right after that, all because of the lack of knowledge, and what they thought they were doing was, well, I ain't gonna say they thought what they was doing was right, but what they was doing, it was really heightening the mental illness that people were already having. Let's see. My thing keep freezing. Okay, everybody's speaking. Look, Carol mentioned this. Shoot, we were all hysterical, even for bad periods. I bet when we went in. What's the rest of the thought? Oh yeah, when you went in. But I read that thinking about something else. Now, in recent years, they consider kids who are bedwetting. I read that comment, and I don't know why I thought bedwetting. It's a mental disorder, so they give them medications for that, and those medications cause different reactions, causes that person or that child to be heightened, continued in that heightened state of bedwetting. And then once they give them that medication for the mental, to cure the mental part, then they give them something in addition to that to make them hold their it shuts off the urge of you, the sensation of your bladder saying that you gotta go use the bathroom. So instead of curing the disease that they say you have, decreasing that flight or decreasing those hormones and returning them back to a normal state, they give you something that keeps you there or heightens it. And then, in addition to make you think that what they're giving you is working, they give you something to cut off the bladder sensation. So, yeah, you're not wetting in the bed no more, but it's not because they've cured you. It's because they've given you a bladder blocker, in essence, to make you think that you're cured. So you got to be careful. Be careful with this. I was wondering how he gives a solution to turn this around. Okay, so I'm going to play that. Yes, a lobectomy is wild and very sad. It definitely is. Look, Carol say during perimenopause she would have been snatched away. Yeah, a lot of us would be locked up for not listening. So I'm gonna share with you guys how he says your diet will help.
The metabolism and mental health. Diet.
So diet is huge. And most people have no clue that diet plays any role in mental illness or mental health. 95% of mental health clinicians think it's laughable that anybody would suggest that diet can play a role in mental illness. They think it's laughable.
What do you think?
I think if you do a deep dive into the science, all of the science that we have accumulated over the last 100 years and longer sometimes, that if you do a deep dive into all of those neuroimaging studies that we've been doing, all of the genetic studies we've been doing, all of the neurotransmitter and hormone studies and trauma studies and adverse childhood experiences studies, if you do a deep dive into the science and you understand what is happening in the brains and bodies of people as a consequence of those things, or what could be causing those things, if you put it all together, you come to this soundbite that mental disorders are metabolic in nature. And there is no questioning whatsoever. It is incontrovertible that diet plays a massive, huge role in metabolism. And therefore, I believe very strongly that diet might be playing a role in the mental health epidemic that we are seeing. And it also might provide an avenue of hope and healing and recovery. And I use the word might as the scientist in me, as the clinician in me. I know without certainty it can heal and recover people who have had chronic, horrible, debilitating mental illnesses. And I know from my own personal story, when I was in medical school and residency, I'm still suffering from low-grade depression, OCD, other symptoms. But I also developed what's called metabolic syndrome. I developed high blood pressure, high cholesterol, pre-diabetes, and I wasn't really overweight. I was exercising, I was following a low-fat diet, mostly of processed foods because they're cheaper. But that was the diet that was touted as a healthy diet. It was low in fat. And as long as it was low in fat, that was supposed to be good for us. And my metabolic syndrome just kept getting worse and worse. And so at some point, in order to treat my metabolic syndrome, I changed my diet to essentially a low carbohydrate diet. And within 3 months, my metabolic syndrome was completely gone. But the thing that just dumbfounded me was that my mental health was better than it had ever been in my entire life. And I just couldn't believe what I was experiencing. I didn't know that I could be that kind of a person. I didn't know that I could be happy and positive and energetic and confident. I had no idea. I didn't think that was in me. And by changing my diet, all of those things happened.
At the level of the mitochondria, are you saying, do you believe that because you changed your diet to more sort of natural, healthier foods, at the level of the mitochondria were able to function more naturally themselves and in a more functional way, which meant that the chemicals they released in the processes they go through were more consistent with positive mental health? Is that like the simpleton's way of understanding it? And before then, you talked about man-made compounds in the foods, etc. I'm assuming you're saying that some of the modern foods that we eat, the ultra-processed foods that have all of these random named chemicals inside them that we see on the labels, the mitochondria don't know how to deal with that. So it's causing the same sort of dysregulation and dysfunction that they might see if we'd gone through like an extreme trauma or something else or some other adverse environmental situation. It's just this dysfunction of the mitochondria, which is causing the knock-on effects we see. But there's many things that can cause dysfunction in the mitochondria. And we went through a bunch of them earlier. Is that like a simple way of understanding it?
100%.
Okay, great.
It's perfect.
Super interesting.
And my mother...
Sorry, in pausing that, I'll rewind the video, but I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to where we were. But I just wanted to stop that because in essence, he just gave y'all a whole spiel in a nutshell to tell you that the foods that we eat with those chemicals and those ingredients that's in it is what's causing you to have your body not at the homeostasis or not at equilibrium. Is causing you to be in heightened, elevated states, which causes for a prolonged period of time, which in essence, why you're having those mental while we have those mental issues. So in order to do that, you have to eliminate those foods from your diet, period. Just simple as that. Because the things that we eat, our body don't know how to process it, don't know how to break it down, don't know how to break it down and use it as energy. So it's just sitting in our system for prolonged periods of time, causing dysfunction. Bottom line. What's up, Cropper? Welcome in. Welcome in. He says, change your diet, change your life. That's right. And you know it, man. Carol says, a mother can pass all that through her body to into the child, and you have a baby, yep, with similar states. Because yeah, you definitely can. If you're going through that while you're pregnant, on the cellular level, you're passing those same cells to that baby. That baby is connected to you. And then they have to learn how to process that. You're eating those foods that's supposed to be good for your baby. You're taking folic acid that they say is supposed to be good for your baby. But if that's not really folic acid, if it's something else, then it's causing other issues to that child. To now that child's body doesn't know how to deal with it. And now that child is born with, I'm just going to say, born with sickle cell because of a medication or a food that you were ingesting that was supposed to be good for the baby, but it contained some type of matter that the cells, the human cells, don't know how to break down and metabolize, and now it in turns shows up as a disease in that baby and that mother. In essence, that is what he's saying. Let's see if I can get back to where we were.
Causing the same sort of dysregulation and dysfunction that they might see if we'd gone through like an extreme trauma or something else or some other adverse environmental situation. It's just this dysfunction of the mitochondria, which is causing the knock-on effects we see. But there's many things that can cause dysfunction in the mitochondria. He's going to give you some type and we went through a bunch of them earlier. Is that like a simple way of understanding
about 5 more minutes. And
okay, great.
Done.
Perfect.
Super interesting. Okay, so on that point then, we have to zoom in on this thing of diet. If you wanted my mitochondria to be perfect, and maybe even give me a case study of, I don't know, patients you've worked with that you've prescribed a certain diet to, what diet, what food would you tell me to eat? And what would you tell me not to eat?
So I actually don't have a one-size-fits-all prescription. And so I want to say that up front. So I would want to know, who am I working with and how is their mental and metabolic health now?
Me.
So you.
Yeah.
So I would want more details. Are you having symptoms of any mental health condition?
I would say no. However, I can have moments where I feel a little bit anxious. So, I've been through a lot of, I'd say, like stressful events in my life because I was running a big business. We had hundreds of employees all the time. So at one point, I had this constant, subtle stress.
And so I would want to know, do you feel like you have anxiety for no good reason?
Sometimes it can feel a little bit like that. It's very infrequent, I'd say.
Okay, so he asking questions by
but I can also have moments where I just think of something
right
and then
now.
I get the same kind of like, it's almost like the fight or flight response is just kicked in.
But you think of something adverse?
Yes, J.K. Gardner.
Or stressful?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
So the one thing I would say about that, and we could get into a lot more details, which we probably don't want to do now.
I don't mind.
Podcast. But my strong guess, based on just what you've said, is that level of stress and anxiety is quote unquote normal.
Okay.
Because you are sensing, I have to go do something that's really scary right now, or I have to go do something that's going to ruin someone's life, or that might threaten my success. It is normal and actually healthy to have anxiety and stress in those situations. The anxiety and stress can sometimes be quite helpful and adaptive because it can make you pause and reflect on, is this really what I want to do? As opposed to being overly confident and just proceeding. Your own personal history almost certainly informs your level of stress response. And again, so if you go back to your own traumas, you're going to remember when I'm facing a situation like this, it's helpful to be on hyper alert. It's helpful to be hyper vigilant. And your body and brain will remember that helped you navigate this safely and effectively.
But if I have that profile, if I have that sort of mental health profile now as I sit here, and then for the next decade, I ate processed junk food, am I going to send my mitochondria into disarray, which is going to increase the probability that I have a mental health disorder?
Yes, I think yes. We've got, there's no way we will ever be able to do a human randomized controlled trial to test that precise
unethical
hypothesis.
Yeah.
But we have large epidemiological studies that strongly suggest that people who eat a lot of ultra-processed food have higher risk for developing depression, anxiety, and other mental disorders. And based on the science, the granular science, based on animal models. So we can do that to mice and rats. And in fact, that's exactly what we see in mice and rats. We feed them an obesogenic diet, which is usually high in fat, high in carbohydrates, ultra-processed foods. Some researchers have fed rats and mice cafeteria diets where they feed them a lot of delicious junk food. And those mice develop higher rates of obesity, but also higher rates of diabetes and prediabetes. And oh, by the way, also higher rates of depression and anxiety, because those are the two things that we can kind of measure in mice and rats. We can't necessarily measure ADHD symptoms. It's really hard to actually measure psychotic symptoms. But we can measure depression and anxiety symptoms pretty well in animals. And so in animal models, we know that that's unequivocally true.
And we see the same in humans, though, because I was reading your book, and in chapter 4, you say people with ADHD are more likely to develop obesity. People who are obese are 50% more likely to develop bipolar and 25% more likely to develop anxiety or depression. And weight gain around the time of puberty leads to a 400% increase in the chance of depression by the age of 24.
Yes. And insulin resistance at age 9 increases your chances of developing a psychotic at-risk mental state, which is like meaning you're at high risk for developing schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, 500%.
And Alzheimer's?
All mental disorders are associated with an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. Anywhere from the lowest is 50% increased risk, and the highest is 2,000% increased risk.
And the thread that unites all of these problems is metabolism.
Metabolism.
And metabolism is essentially your body not knowing how to process the food that you putting in your body. Like our body know how to process natural food, but how do you end up with a metabolism problem, metabolic disorder? It's because you putting something in your mouth that your body does not know how to process. Bottom line. So I'm not gonna go on. He does have a section on here where he talks about what foods we should eat. We already know that. If you don't know that, let me tell you. If you're not growing it, then you have to do your own research and turn those labels around and read on the back of it and see what is in that food. And if it's an ingredient that your body does not know how to process, stay away from it. Unless you consent. When you buying it, you paying your money, you are essentially consenting to them giving you the disease. You can't really You can't really do nothing about it if you buying it, and they telling you what's in it and telling you what's and you did your research and you know what it's gonna cause and you still buy it. You are essentially signing your consent for them to give you these issues. So I wanted to share that with you guys because I wanted to stress the importance of us knowing that the foods that we eat is not just for is we don't need to just be looking at it as far as diabetes is concerned, high cholesterol is concerned, all the big C is concerned, but it's more to that too. It is your mental, you having these episodes of depression, of anxiety, of hypertension, hyperactive, or you can't focus, or brain fog, and all of that. It all ties into what we are putting in our bodies. And for a long time, for years, we could have relied on, well, we didn't know, but now you know, and now you have where you can find out. Okay, so take the time and pay attention to that, because I will stress again, it is a matter of life or death. If you don't care about your quality of life, then just go ahead and buy stuff and don't pay attention to it. Don't do your research. Don't just listen to me. Do your own research and find out for yourself. Oh yeah. Carol says dyes are horrible. Malachi would be nuts on it too. Oh yeah, red dye is the worst, and for kids on the spectrum, it makes them insane. They just recently started to remove red dye from all medications. I've experienced that firsthand on in the medical uh field. They're removing red dyes from medications. So I guess it's enough people. I guess they've been losing a lot of money for it, and enough people has been raising hell about it too. Now they want to make a change. So yeah, they are removing red dyes. It's slowly but surely it's coming along, but it should have never been. That's my thing. It should have never happened. Yeah, I don't even. I would like to know the reason for dyeing it. Is it because you want to make it look good? Maybe people are more susceptible to taking it because it's red. Oh, I don't see their rationale behind having the red besides the effects that they knew that it would have. I can see how you coat a medicine with sugar, okay, to make it taste good. Okay, I'm more apt to take it. You might get me to be more compliant if it's a little sweeter. I can see you saying that. But the dye, I don't know. I don't know. She said it was good by you. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I thank all of y'all for coming in, and I hope that this sparked your attention and got those wheels to turning and had some light bulbs to go off in your head and makes you realize that you have to be your own advocate and you have to be the one to protect you, because nobody is doing it for you anymore. Nobody is concerned putting your health first anymore. It's only you. And if you don't do it, nobody else will. So, with that being said, guys, please continue to turn your labels around. Look at those nutrition labels and see about that added sugars. You don't want to get it if it says added sugars. Don't stop there. Look at those ingredients on there. Look for those AKA names for sugar and all those other names for things that you can't pronounce. You don't know what it means. Put it back. Don't get it. Then you want to stick to your low carb diets. That's 225 to 225 to 300 grams of carb. This is not just for a person that's trying to lose weight or anything. This is what you should be doing to be at your most optimal self, okay? And so your body can maintain homeostasis and maintain an equilibrium so that you won't be in these elevated states for months and days and years, and developing diseases, physical diseases, and mental health problems. So you want to do those. Count your carbs, and you also want to limit your portion sizes. If you're counting your carbs, then you should be limiting your portion sizes. Okay, you shouldn't be doing that. And don't forget about your fasting. This is so important. You see, when you mention fasting, people like, oh Lord, you just no. Fasting simply means that you're giving your body a rest. Don't you go to sleep and you take a rest from the day? Well, give your body a rest from working. So that's what fasting is. You need to give your body a break. Give it some time to reset itself and get back to its tip top shape so that it can process. If you so happen to breathe in some air that has a chemical in it that you have no control over, your body will be able to process it and get it out of your system quickly. So give your body that resting time. 12 to 16 hours of fasting a day. Ideally, you want to eat with the sun. When the sun comes up, you're eating. When the sun goes down, you're not eating anymore. Ideally, but I know that some of us, work hours, so you'd have to, schedule that or do that to your tailor that to your lifestyle. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we need to do the fasting, as I was saying, 12 to 16 hours. Give your body a break from eating, allow it to rest, to rejuvenate itself so that it can do what it needs to do. And then I'm glancing through these comments. I'm going to go through them all before I leave. But Mike mentioned about breakfast. Just because you're waking up in the morning doesn't mean that that's the time that you should be eating. If you have not been fasting for that 12 hours, then don't just fall into the idea of it's morning time, I should be eating a meal. No, that's not necessarily true. Your body still may need some more time. You may still have 4 more hours left on your fast. Okay? Breakfast doesn't mean a meal in the morning. Breakfast means you're breaking your fast. That means you've been without food for the last 12 to 16 hours, and this is your first meal after you have been taking a break from food. Okay? So, you guys make sure you do that. And then, just to put a cherry on the cake, it is not uh essential, but it does help if you want to exercise some. F.R. Humphrey says, grow your own food. Exactly. If you're not growing your own food, you want to support someone who is doing it. Go purchase from them. Go to your local farmers market and get things from them. Mike says, wake up system slow. That's exactly with tea or warm water. So when you're breaking your fast, you don't want to just have no heavy meal and just come off a fast and eat something heavy. Mike says, wake it up slow. Make sure you're consuming the right amount of water and get you some coconut water in there. It'll help you stay regular. Don't wake up shoveling in carbs like cereal, like Mike say. And Carol says, yes, disclaimer, this is for entertainment and educational purposes. This is not medical advice. Do your own research. Exactly. Thank you so much. She says, I wish my dad ate more eggs we used to when I was little, but life got busy and I wonder if he would have kept his oh, it could have been possible because now we're showing research is showing that Alzheimer's is directly related to your food. Thank you, Miss J.K. Gordon. She said, for sure, great information by you. Thank you. And I thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, the rest of your Friday. For those of you who are part of the co-op, we will be doing our drawing at 5 p.m. Central Time, which is 6 Eastern Time. That's only for those who are part of the Sugar Mama membership and that are members of the co-op. So I will see you guys then in a couple of hours, about 3 hours to be exact. Other than that, she said, I definitely think my parents had diabetes in their latter years. Yeah, 9 times out of 10, they probably did. Yes, take care, everyone. I hope you have enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope this helps put you guys in a better mental space. Okay, please take care of your mental health. I love you guys. Carol said move does not have to be exercise, but we need to move. Yep, points of self, definitely get out there in that garden that's keeping you moving and things. I love you guys. Have a great rest of your Friday. Peace, love, and blessings, everyone. I appreciate you.